Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. I wanted to come to you this morning with a book chat. I wanted to talk about the book Ghost by Jason Reynolds. This was a National Book Award finalist. I felt it was an excellent book. I thought it was absolutely great. Hits on a lot of big topics. It's actually part of a series. It's book one in I believe, a four-part series. And I thought it was wonderful. It is a book for middle school kids. It's a middle school grade book. It's about 180 pages. It comes from Anthem Books for Young Readers, and it was 2017. It comes from 2017. But recently, the middle school language arts teacher at the school I work in, she had read this book over the summer and bought it for her classroom library, and she handed it to me during teacher meetings and said, I think you need to read this. I think you're going to really like it. And I am very glad that I listened to her, because this book hits on so many big topics and big themes that come up in young people's lives. I'll be honest, as I was going through, I teared up in a couple different spots, because for me, if you followed the channel before, I come from I went into foster care and bounced around foster home to foster home until I finally got adopted. So that troubled background I definitely can relate to. Didn't have the same things happen to me, but I understand it. I have empathy for that. And but anyway, this book's about a kid named Castle Cranshaw. He's his self-proclaimed nickname Ghost. He had like I said, a troubled background. Him and his mom lived with their father when he was younger. The father was a alcoholic, very abusive, would physically abuse the mother, physically abuse the child, and it's confusing to him to try to understand why a man that says he loves you and that you feel like you should be loving is being abusive. And it escalated in the first chapter. In one of the instances, it escalates to the point where the father pulls a gun on them, and the mother grabs Ghost, and they take off, and the father shoots at him, and the father eventually ends up being put in jail. And this is the story of what happens afterwards. How do you save a kid that's been through a traumatic experience like that? And this kid's saving grace is going to be track. And again, I say that I feel empathy for this kid. I kind of understand that. Baseball was always my saving grace, and it helped me through a lot of stuff. And track is going to be what he stumbles upon and figures out that it is going to be his thing that really gets him through trying times. And so, as you can imagine, like I said, it's 180 pages, not real big, but it hits on these big themes. And so, throughout the book, Castle Cranshaw, he's going to wander down by the track, and he's going to see this city track team down there practicing. And he knows he's fast, but he's never really been put into an athletic sport ever. And he just kind of laughs at what they're doing down on the track, and he goes down on the track and races the fastest kid on the team, and sticks right with him and beats him. And that kid was in his shorts and running shoes, and Castle's in high top sneakers with a long pair of jeans on. And so, needless to say, the track coach is very impressed and talks him into coming out and trying out for this track team. And he eventually makes the team, and the whole story is about heading into that first track meet and all the stuff that goes on. And part of the agreement was, when the track coach went to the mother and asked, would this be all right if he participated, was that Castle can't get in any more trouble. And we find that trouble kind of finds Castle. He seems to find himself in a lot of trouble throughout the book. Typical of a kid with this type of background. We see this all the time at school, and we work with kids like this all the time. I was one of those kids who, periodically got in trouble for dumb things. And as a teacher, this really spoke to me, because some of those kids, some of them are going to have issues throughout their life, but there's also some of them that have just been put into a very bad environment, and if you just give them a chance, they can succeed. And I see that in Castle. I see that in kids I work with, and somebody saw that in me. So that was one of the real big reasons that I really took hold of this book. And so I've got a lot of several places I want to talk about with themes that are going through the book and how the author approached them. So I'm just going to kind of go sticky note for sticky note here, if you don't mind me reading my notes, and we'll talk about some of these. So Castle gets into one of the early scenes as he gets into a fight at school with the school bully, and the bully's making fun of him because of his clothes, because of his haircut, because his mom cuts his hair, and where he lives, which like I said is the poverty-stricken part of town, and gets in this fight, and the coach ends up bailing him out. Castle Cranshaw doesn't want to call home to mom because he's about ready to be suspended. And, there's some things that work out that he doesn't end up getting suspended. And he tells the principal, I'll call my uncle. He can pick me up. And he calls the coach. And the coach has to kind of play along with it. And he basically tells him, this shouldn't happen ever again. I'm never going to bail you out again like this. And, he kind of poses this question to Castle. Does getting in a fight make you tough? Really? I mean, what is tough? And so you start going through the psychological side of this, and what kids, what makes somebody tough? Is it just being physically strong, or is there other aspects that can make you tough? And of course, Castle answers him, no, it doesn't make me tough. And so then he poses the question, let me guess, you're one of these kids who aren't scared of nothing. And Castle's, just kind of sitting there, and he says, no, I'm scared of my mom and dad. And the mom, because he doesn't want to be in trouble with her. It's more of a respect thing. But the dad, I mean, the pure thought that your dad could be shooting you. I mean, he's proven that it's a possibility. Can you imagine going through the trauma of that? And so, we start getting into this idea of what is tough and what are you scared of? And, kids are scared of all kinds of things. And the coach basically tells him, well, you can't run from yourself, because it kind of comes down to you're almost scared of yourself, scared of what might happen, because it gets into, and as I'll talk about here in just a second, Castle Cranshaw has this anger that builds up inside of him. And, being a kid from a rough background myself, in some instances, I understand that anger. And one of the things you have to learn to do is to harness that anger and channel it and find an outlet. And the coach is recognizing that this boy just needs an outlet. He needs to learn how to have self-control and then take that feeling and send it somewhere else. And I think really sports can do that for kids. I think sports are huge for kids, that it gives them an outlet for their energy, an outlet for their anger. You can show them how to positively use that. Being right now in football season, that's something I'm working on with a couple of my kids. Use that and channel it into, hitting somebody hard on the football field in a clean, legal way. But you can still get that, that physical side of things. He says, well, you can't run from yourself. Ain't nobody that fast. And I just, that statement really, it really stuck with me. You can't run from what's inside. You have to learn how to deal with it. And so I thought that was really big in this book. Let's see here. So Castle's constantly dealing with these personal demons. And I thought it was interesting because, he makes a statement, there was so much noise inside of you, or inside of me. Castle Cranshaw says this. And I thought, that's exactly right. Because when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't even think about what's going on. You don't hear anything else. I think of it like when you're in sports and you're in the zone and the crowd's cheering, but you never hear anything that's being said or yelled or whatever. When you're angry inside and you're in the middle of about ready to be in a fight, that's kind of what happens. The adrenaline kicks in and you're so focused. And it's scary when that boils up inside of you. And middle school kids, this book does such a great job of talking about that and given the idea that younger kids just don't know how to deal with that. And you also have to think about the development of middle school age kids. That's when hormones are hitting, and so they've got all of this anger, they've got all of this, all these other things that are going on with their bodies and inside their heads, and they're having to learn how to deal with that. And we as adults are the ones that really have to help teach them how to deal with it. And so, this coach, he becomes the father figure for Castle, the father that is, his father's in jail. And so the coach becomes that father figure. And it's interesting as you get towards the end of the book, when the coach starts giving his backstory, it makes perfect sense why he latches on to Castle so tightly. Because Castle is the type of kid that, it would be really easy to overlook him. It would be really easy for somebody to say, yeah, he's just a troubled teen that's never going to make it. Why waste time on him? Let's put our time into this kid. And, I have a lot of people who look at me with that same, why are you spending time with that kid? And I'm just sitting there thinking, you never know when there's a diamond in the rough. You never know when that kid could turn things around, do a whole, complete 180 and turn it around. And you cannot take the chance of losing one. Everybody deserves a second chance. And, when we talk about kids, they deserve a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and so on chance. You can't give up on kids, especially when it's because of their environment and they are the ones that they can't help that. That is not on them. You cannot put that on kids. And that is really what this book is all about in my eyes. You can't put that on there. And the coach gives him some great advice. And he says, he's dropping the kid off at his house because he's giving him a ride home every day because he has to take the bus. He has to walk. Mom has no car. And so the coach is giving him a ride home, and when he drops him off, he says, I shook my head and unlocked the door, and after I got out, Coach rolled down the window. The car slowly drifted forward. Remember what I said, Ghost? He accelerated slightly. Tomorrow, it won't matter. It'll be a new day and a new chance. And that really stuck with me because I firmly believe in, I might be mad at a kid for a day, but the next day, I'm wiping the slate clean, and we start over. And I give them that next chance. Sometimes I give them too many chances. I get that. And some kids take advantage of that, but way too many of them, or not too many. I have found that kids latch on to that, and they tend to like my class because they know that I care and that I'm going to give them that chance, and I'm going to help them develop along the way and become good human beings. And kids sense that. They know when you love and care about them. So anyway, that really stuck with me. And let's see here. Next, like I said, going note for note. Sorry about that. Let's see. I thought the author did an excellent job of, talking about situations that kids get in all the time. Kids are, they're squirrely. They're funny. I love them to death, this middle school age. I used to be, when I first started, I thought I was kind of scared to teach them, and I didn't know if I'd be able to do it. And now I don't know if I ever want to teach anybody else, any other grade level, because they're so squirrely and funny and honest. And not that they don't ever lie, but sometimes the honesty just pulls, flows forth, and you're like, oh my gosh, the darndest things kids will say. But anyway, this author does an excellent job of putting himself in a middle school kid's shoes and walking you through the thought processes of a middle schooler. I see this so much at school. This really hit home, so to speak, or at least my second home at school. Let's see here. One of the things that Cranshaw deals with, or has to learn to deal with, that really hits him, and this one, touched me because I have issues with it from time to time, is he gets into a situation where he's almost having flashbacks and reminders of the past and the gun being shot and all that kind of stuff. And he basically has a panic attack, and the anxiety kicks in. He has a panic attack and goes running from the building that he was in and stuff. And I've been there myself, and it stinks. It's a feeling of helplessness, and your mind just, I don't really know how to explain it, but he goes through that in the book, and the author does a good job of talking about this and working the kid through in the story, working him through these tough situations, because you got to learn to confront it. You got to figure out a way to deal with that tough situation so that it doesn't haunt you all your life. And I found outlets to help me so that doesn't bother me anymore, that particular thing. And Cranshaw has to deal with that himself. in the book. Let's see, he deals with, this book also talks about kids getting their emotions all bottled up and then all at once just exploding. And I get like that, where I get stressed out about stuff and it just builds and builds and builds. Unfortunately, my wife sometimes sees me explode, and I don't mean to. And, my wife here at home has to kind of calm me down and walk me back to, bring me back down to earth, so to speak. And I love her for that. And the coach and there's a store owner in the book that really helped Cranshaw deal with all that bottled up emotion. And so I kind of feel with him. I feel for him on that. Moving into the next part of the book here. There's a point where he gets in trouble and he has to start, he's going to practice, and he gets for getting in trouble, he has penalties that he has to do, extra running. He has a practice before practice, basically, at track. And his coach is really working him over, and sometimes he doesn't always finish, in the actual practice finish as well as he should have. And it all becomes because it comes because of him basically doing 2 practices. And there's a point later on where they're talking about on one of the days during the week, they work on distance, and they just run several miles, and they can't quit. And Castle finishes like dead last, but he finishes. And that's such a big message for kids that, sometimes it isn't about finishing in first place or second place, getting in the, medaling in the top 3. Sometimes that's not the thing we need to look at, especially as coaches. They might not be a number 1, 2, or 3 kid, but we have to look at kids in the light that they finished the race. And I think that is so huge in a kid's life, just to be able to finish the race. And then, the next time they do it, they get better. Maybe they're not medaling. Maybe they're, still in the bottom couple, but they finished and they got better. And that's how I do my, when I coach track, that's what I'm all about. I tell the kids, you are in a race against yourself every day. If you win in the track meet and you medal, that's just gravy. That's icing on the cake. You are in a race against yourself, and it's all about making yourself better each day. And then as you make yourself better, it's going to make the team better. And there's a big message of that in this book with Cranshaw finishing last, and he's really fast in sprints, but this is distance, and he finishes, and it impresses just about all the kids on his team, where in the past he had been alienated from several of those kids just because of his background. And let's see. Oh, and then in the book, it just talks about how kids, sometimes, getting back to that trouble theme, that getting in trouble is a slippery slope. Once you get in trouble once, it's easy to get in trouble a second, third, fourth time. He hits on that in this book. It's a slippery slope. I mean, you got to have a good support group to help you with that, because if you don't, you're going to be in serious, serious trouble in the end. You got to have teachers who are patient, or adults around you that are patient and willing to kind of guide you back in the right direction. Let's see here. Next thing I wanted to talk to you about. I thought this was a great quote. The coach later on in the book, he says, I want to show you that you can't run away from who you are, but what you can do is run toward who you want to be. So, you might have this really bad background, but that does not mean that you can't succeed in life. I had a rough background, but I feel that I am rich now. Not monetarily by any means, but, I have a roof over my head. And I got a wife that loves me. I got 2 girls that are healthy, and I love them to death. And, I mean, they come with their challenges, but doesn't all parenting. And I really see myself in this when the coaches, it's almost like the coach is talking to me. It's not about what was in your past. And this is what I preach to my kids all the time. It's not about what was in your past. It's what you're striving to be in the future. And I tell them, you got to get your education. You got to make better for yourself. Maybe you're not going to be, this outstanding scholar, but you got to work to get better. You can't expect things to be handed to you. And I just see that in this quote, that you can make this vision of yourself. You can make it a point to make a good legacy of yourself, and you can turn things around. I just think that's huge. I love it. Show that you can't run away from who you are, but you can. But what you can do is run toward who you want to be. You can make better for yourself. You can try. I think that's huge. And overall, I've said this, but this is the story of what sports can do for kids. It's huge for kids. I think it can give them it gives them discipline. It gives them something to strive for, keeps them out of trouble. We typically see that kids who do sports tend to get better grades in school because they have this goal for themselves, wanting to play and all this. And so it helps all around. It gives them a place. It gives them ownership. It gives them acceptance within a team. And I think that's just huge. Everybody needs to feel like they're a part of something. I don't care if it's sports or like my daughter likes music, so band, and she loves speech and drama. That's her acceptance. And some kids, it might be the chess club. That's okay. Some people, it might be booktube. That's okay. Everybody needs to feel accepted, and this book really hits on that. I think it's huge, and the coach does an excellent job of doing these team builders to get the kids to accept each other, know each other, become friends, fight for each other. And here's another thing I took. Let's see. No matter how mad you are at a parent, no matter how much you can hate them or what they did, they are still your parent and you still love them. And that was something I took personally out of this because I got anger at my biological, for things that happened to me when I was a kid. I'll just keep it at that. I have anger that gets built up. But at the same time, I still love them. And it's a really weird feeling that, somebody that's done such bad things, you can still turn around and love them. And Castle goes through this. His dad shot a gun at him, beat him physically, but yet he still turns around and still has that thought process that I still love the man. And he struggles with that. And I had that struggle for such a long time. I'm okay with it now. I think I've come to an understanding. But, he hits on that in this book. And so, last thing I wanted to take note of, and I'll start wrapping this up because this is getting to be kind of a long video. So overall, this book, it's a story of forgiveness, constant forgiveness. And, I made note that is what we have to do for kids. They're going to make mistakes. Don't write them off. You have to keep giving them a shot, and you have to keep providing, good advice. Provide the environment when you can, that good environment. Use them, use them as teaching moments. Every time you see something bad happen, use that as a teaching moment. Turn it around into a positive. Forgiveness cleanses the soul. And that's what Cranshaw gets in this book from his coach, is that forgiveness is cleansing his soul and making a better human being out of him. And, be there for kids at their sporting events if you're a parent, or any of their events. It doesn't have to be sports. In this case, it's sports. But be there for them. Even if your kid rides the bench, do not remind them of that. Don't do that. That is not right. There is a part on every team, and every part is essential to the success of the entire team. You don't have to be the starting quarterback and throw the winning touchdown. Sometimes that kid that is cheering on the sideline is just as important as the kid on the field. And as parents in the stands, that's part of the team. You got to be there for your kids. You got to give support to your kids. Don't ignore their events, whether it's sports, speech, band, music, or like singing, choir stuff. I don't care. Tiddlywinks, competition, it does not matter. Be there for them and be supportive, be positive. And that is what this whole book is about. It meant so much to me, and it just warmed my heart, had me in tears at the end of the book. It's going to mean the world to them just to see you there in support. I can't tell you that enough. So be loyal, support them, support what they want, or what they're doing, no matter what it is. I mean, as long as it's not something really bad, that's, I mean, obvious. But, you know, when they're doing positive stuff, you have got to be, when they're a part of a team and stuff, you have got to be supportive of them, especially when they're going out on a limb on something that is out of their comfort zone. You've got to be supportive, and that's what this book is all about. This whole thing is about love, man. Love, and support. And you can, I can't say it enough. I say it enough. You can save those kids out there. And Jason Reynolds just comes across wonderfully in this book. I cannot stress enough what he does with this story. It is absolutely awesome. It is a 5-star book in my opinion. I'd recommend, even though it's a middle school book, I'd recommend everybody to go out there and read this, and then think about in your own lives, you know, in your past, those kids that this book's talking about. Maybe it's you they're talking about, or the kids around you right now. Think about what you can do for the kids. And so, again, this is Bill Ruttenberg, Ruttenberg Library. I highly recommend the book Ghost by Jason Reynolds. Thank you, BookTube. Sorry it got so long, but thank you for your time. I hope you made it to the end. Till next time, happy reading.